The desert was quiet. Dust swirled under the red-orange sky of dusk as Jack Granger's beat-up truck rattled down the dirt path behind the repair shop. He wasn't heading anywhere important. Just driving. It was something he did often since the war. Since the explosion at Station 9 took his wife and little girl. Since Earth closed its borders to the stars and told the galaxy it wanted to be left alone. Jack had told himself the same thing. But something about tonight made the silence feel heavier, as if the air itself held its breath. He caught it in the corner of his eye. A flicker, a strange shimmer in the sand that didn't belong. At first he thought it was a mirage or maybe the beer catching up to him. But the glint didn't fade. It pulsed. Carefully, he stopped the truck, engine still running. He stepped out, boots crunching softly against gravel and broken glass. A crater. Small, not military size. But something had come down hard. The smoke rising from the center told him it was recent, less than an hour. He should have called it in. The Exo-Security Division would arrive fast, and asking too many questions wasn't good for someone like Jack, someone who preferred shadows over spotlights. But curiosity was stronger than fear. He walked toward the wreckage. It wasn't large, barely the size of a van, charred silver hull cracked open at one end. There were no markings, no insignia. Just faintly glowing lines running along the surface, like veins. Then he heard it. Not a sound exactly. More like a sob. A whimper. Jack's breath caught. He moved closer, heart beating fast. Inside, amid broken tech and sparking wires, something moved. Small. Curled up. The skin was pale, almost silver. Limbs long and thin. Hair like ink. When the creature, no, the child, turned its head, Jack saw her eyes. Not human. Glowing soft blue. Wide. Afraid. Covered in bruises, blood, and ash. It was a little girl. He didn't know what made him do it. Instinct maybe. Or memory. He stepped forward and whispered gently, "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The girl flinched. Her hands glowed faintly. Jack paused. "You're scared. I get it. But you're hurt. And this place isn't safe." She didn't answer. Just stared. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She shivered but didn't resist. Carefully, he lifted her, noting how weightless she felt. She clung to his chest, small fingers gripping his shirt with desperate strength. Back in the truck, she curled up on the seat, eyes never leaving his face. He didn't speak much during the ride. What could he say? That she had just destroyed any hope of a quiet life? That bringing home an alien, especially now, was suicide? That she reminded him too much of someone he couldn't bear to remember? At home, Jack set her down on the couch. His place wasn't much. Tools scattered across the kitchen table, rusted appliances, faded family photos half buried under dust. The girl looked around silently, watching everything. He knelt down and opened a drawer. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a blanket. Small, pink, faded from sun and time. His daughter's. He hesitated, then handed it to her. She held it carefully, nose brushing against the fabric. A tiny smile flickered for a second. It almost broke him. "You're safe here," he said. "I promise." That night he barely slept. The girl sat upright on the couch, staring at the door as if expecting it to burst open. Around 3 a.m., she finally lay down. Jack watched from the hallway. Just before she drifted off, she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. But the tone, soft, trembling, felt familiar. A bedtime word, maybe? A goodbye. She woke screaming. It wasn't a normal nightmare. Jack raced to her side, found her curled into a ball, glowing faintly, the air buzzing with static. Her voice echoed strange syllables, her eyes glowing so bright it lit the room. He tried to touch her, but his fingers stung as if electricity ran off her skin. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. She collapsed into his arms, breathing shallow, sweat pouring down her temples. He sat with her till sunrise. He didn't know her name, Didn't know what species she was. Didn't know why she was here or what had brought her through space, crashing into a forgotten corner of the Earth. But he knew she was alone. Afraid. And something, had tried to kill her. He remembered the warnings. Earth's new laws. No aliens, no exceptions. Exosecurity said it was for humanity's protection. After the war, after losing billions to off-world attacks and betrayals, trust had been shattered. Earth had bled for peace, and now it guarded that peace like a wounded animal. But Jack had buried too much to sit still. She needed him. He taught her words. Slowly. Patiently. She was smart, too smart. Picked up shapes and pictures with frightening speed. She liked music. Old songs. Jack played vinyls while he worked, and she'd sit nearby, head tilted, listening as if the notes explained everything. He called her Nia, short, soft, something close to the sound she murmured that first night. She didn't object. Days passed. Then weeks. Jack hid her well. Told neighbors he was working on long-haul drone contracts. Kept the garage locked. Turned off his internet feed. They shared meals in silence, then with gestures, and finally with words. "Thank you," she said once carefully. Then later, "Safe here." He didn't press for more. Didn't ask where she came from. But sometimes he caught her staring out the window at the stars. Eyes haunted. Like she'd seen too much. Like she'd lost more than a child should. One evening, while fixing a burnt circuit board, Jack found her drawing on the floor. Lines and shapes he didn't recognize, symbols. Too precise to be random. He asked what they meant. She just said, "Home." She missed it. Wherever it was. Whoever she'd left behind. And Jack felt something tighten in his chest. A mix of guilt and hope and grief. She trusted him. And he wouldn't let the world take that away. Not again. Nia adjusted quickly to Earth's gravity and patterns, far faster than Jack expected. She mimicked human behavior, absorbed language nuances, and displayed a quiet intelligence that made her presence feel both alien and deeply familiar. Jack began to understand that her mind worked on a different level, processing information in ways humans couldn't. She wasn't just surviving, she was adapting, observing everything with intense clarity. She watched old news broadcasts, stared at maps, studied Jack's old military tech with unnatural focus. It became clear she wasn't an ordinary child. There was something purposeful in how she navigated the world, even if her eyes remained haunted by whatever she had escaped. Jack tried to shield her from exposure. The government had installed scanners at state borders, and drones occasionally surveyed rural areas. Jack disabled local surveillance nodes using old war tech buried in his garage. His military background, once a burden, became a shield. But Nia wasn't just hiding. She was healing. Her body, previously fragile, grew stronger. Minor wounds closed overnight. Once, she accidentally cut herself on broken glass, and Jack watched the skin stitch itself back together in seconds. She didn't react with surprise. It was normal for her. He didn't ask. Not yet. Their bond deepened without words. Jack's routines shifted to include her naturally. She woke early, waited for him before meals, and often reached for his hand in silence. Trust grew not from grand gestures but from the small, quiet ones, shared looks, nods, the steady presence of someone who wouldn't leave. For Jack, it stirred memories too painful to name. For Nia, it was perhaps the first time safety meant more than survival. He noticed the changes in her demeanor. Less fear. More focus. One afternoon, she rearranged a pile of mechanical parts Jack had given up on and reconstructed a damaged power regulator in less than an hour. Her understanding of systems, energy flows, structural stability, subspace harmonics, was beyond anything human education offered. Jack realized this wasn't a fluke. She wasn't some crash survivor. She was trained. Engineered, maybe? The question burned in his mind. Who was she? One night, while she slept, Jack connected fragments of her ship's data core to his old diagnostic rig. The encryption was dense, almost organic. Whatever language it was written in had no known Earth parallel. But fragments came through, images, flashes. A chamber filled with tall figures clad in flowing armor. A girl standing before a glowing symbol. A voice repeating a phrase Jack couldn't pronounce. But the tone was unmistakable, a vow, or maybe a warning. The next day, Jack confronted her gently, asking if she remembered where she came from. She said one word, Avenkai, and then closed off again. That night, he searched deep archives, using old Black Ops clearance codes. Avenkai appeared only in ghost records, wiped reports from early contact years. A non-hostile civilization, supposedly neutral, later vanished without explanation. The official record marked the system as collapsed. No survivors. That made no sense. Why would a royal, or someone bearing military knowledge, escape a dead world? Jack considered the possibility that someone had tried to erase them. Not just defeat them, but eliminate their existence. If Nia had escaped that, if she was being hunted, then Earth wasn't just her hiding place, it was her last refuge. Jack reinforced the house. Not physically. That would be useless. He installed cloaking fields, signal dampeners, decoys. He coded an emergency lockdown protocol linked to his retinal scan and hers. He trained her, gently, as a precaution. Survival drills. Silent movement. Emergency signals. She absorbed it all without complaint. Not as a game, but as if it were a memory, something she once knew, now remembered. Then came the anomaly. A pulse in low orbit. Not a weapon. Not a broadcast. A scan. Wide, subtle, but far too advanced for Earth's tech. It brushed against his sensor array like a whisper in the dark. Someone was searching. Not blindly. With precision. Jack erased every trace of her signal. Buried her ship core under 6 feet of lead and concrete. But the skin returned 2 nights later, narrower this time. Closer. Jack's breath caught. Someone knew she was here. He didn't tell her at first. She had started laughing again, quiet giggles during breakfast or when his tools clattered to the floor. It was fragile joy. He didn't want to break it. But she knew. She always knew. One morning, she walked to the window and said, "They are near." Her voice wasn't scared. It was tired. Jack packed a go bag. Burners, weapons, medkits. He made a plan, escape routes, rendezvous points. Nia watched silently. "We don't run," she said. "We wait." He didn't understand. She explained in broken English. They wouldn't come yet. They were testing. Watching. Making sure. If they believed she was alone, they'd wait. If they knew she was protected, they'd strike fast. He asked how she knew. Her answer chilled him. "Because I was trained to do the same." It wasn't confirmation. But it was enough. She wasn't just royalty. She was military. A leader. Maybe even something more. Her behavior, her skills, the way she watched the stars, it all made sense now. Whoever she had been among her people, she hadn't just escaped destruction. She was the last of something powerful. Something someone feared enough to hunt across light years. Jack realized his home was no longer safe. Not for her. Not for him. But she refused to run. "Earth is last place," she said simply. "If we run now, we never stop." She was right. Running only delayed what was coming. That night, Jack stood outside, watching the sky. He felt the old ache in his chest, the loss, the guilt, the helpless rage of a man who couldn't save his own family. But now he had a choice. He could run. Or he could fight. And maybe, just maybe, make this one count. Inside, Nia was humming softly, tracing her finger across a glowing map she had drawn from memory. It wasn't just a star chart. It was a plan. Jack didn't ask what her endgame was. He didn't need to. She was preparing for war. And he would be ready. The first direct encounter came without warning. Jack's motion sensors tripped at 2:37 a.m., a silent breach on the perimeter. No signature, no sound, no light. Just a sudden absence of background noise, the kind that made veterans instinctively reach for weapons. He activated countermeasures. No visual targets. Nia, awake before he called her, whispered a warning. They're testing us. He understood immediately. This wasn't a strike. It was an assessment. They were gauging defenses, scanning for hidden tech, waiting for fear. Jack showed none. He activated an old camouflage beacon and initiated a controlled feedback loop, masking the house with ghost signals mimicking an abandoned mining relay. For now it worked. But they would escalate. Over the next 48 hours, the pressure intensified. Power surges in nearby grids. EM interference in civilian communications. Local fauna behaving erratically, likely affected by low-frequency suppressors. Nia confirmed it. Biological disruption tactics, used by elite reconnaissance units in her people's military. The enemy wasn't just alien. They were hers. Former allies. Or worse, internal traitors. Nia didn't explain, but her silence said enough. These weren't faceless monsters. They were remnants of a shattered empire. Jack contacted an old operative. Code name Bishop. Based in Nevada, off-grid. Bishop confirmed strange orbital shifts and black site buzz around Jack's location. Satellite windows were being rerouted. Something big was coming, and nobody on Earth's side knew why. Jack didn't trust the government with Nia. They'd use her or dissect her. Earth wasn't ready. This wasn't a diplomatic affair. It was a countdown. Nia handed Jack a small crystal-like node. She called it a memory core. It contained coordinates, activation sequences, a compressed archive of her lineage, proof of her bloodline, encrypted with quantum locks keyed to her genetics. If I fall, she said, this must go to the stars. Jack didn't argue. He created 3 backups, buried them in separate continents using his old Black Ops drone network. She watched him the entire time, not as a child, but as someone testing a soldier's resolve. The next attack was physical. A drone, non-Earth origin, metallic black, fluid in movement, dropped into the tree line at Mach 3 and splintered into nanofragments before impact. The explosion was contained by Jack's emergency dampeners, but it confirmed their worst fear: locational lock. They had her signal now. Nia ran a trace herself. They don't want to kill, she said. Not yet. They want to extract. Jack realized what that meant. She wasn't just royalty. She was an asset. Possibly the last biological key to activating some dormant technology, or securing a throne that others had killed for. Her presence on Earth wasn't just a mistake, it was a threat to someone else's power. He asked her why they hadn't attacked sooner. Her answer was chilling. Because they know you're human. And humans fight harder than any species. Jack understood the statement's weight. Humanity had always been underestimated. Earth was considered primitive by galactic standards, but there was one universal truth every alien race eventually learned: humans didn't quit. They adapted. They endured. And when cornered, they fought with terrifying desperation. They began building a defense, not just physical, but strategic. Jack called in silent favors. A hacker in Seattle. A rogue physicist from the lunar habitat. A former Martian rebellion leader now living under a new identity. None asked questions. They owed Jack. Within days they had satellite jammers, atmospheric relays, and cloaked drones circling the property. But the defense wasn't meant to last. It was meant to delay. Nia revealed more about her past. Her mother, a high matriarch, had opposed the use of void-born weapons, biological extinction tools that targeted entire bloodlines through genome mapping. That opposition made her a target. Nia had been smuggled out during a palace collapse engineered to look like an accident. Only one shuttle escaped. Hers. It wasn't a random crash. It was sabotage, and Earth was the nearest safe trajectory. Her pursuers were loyalists to a shadow regime, pretenders who now ruled with synthetic obedience and terror. If Nia returned, she wouldn't just reclaim a name. She would dismantle their fabricated legitimacy. But the core of her fear wasn't power. It was war. Returning meant reigniting a conflict that had barely ended, costing billions of lives. "I want peace," she said. "But peace doesn't come when you're hunted." Jack stared at her, this child who carried galaxies in her memory and the weight of civilizations on her shoulders. He knew then that Earth wouldn't stay untouched. The galaxy was coming. Quietly, surgically. And Earth's innocence would be the first casualty. He reached out to a covert alliance known as Grey Protocol, a contingency network of Earth's best minds who had predicted off-world threats long before public disclosure. They agreed to relocate Nia temporarily to a deep-sea facility, hidden, shielded, and completely disconnected from satellite maps. But as Jack prepared the transfer, Nia refused. "They'll follow," she said. "The deeper I hide, the more desperate they become." Jack realized she was right. Hiding would invite escalation. The only way out was to reveal her existence, but on their terms. Not as a fugitive. As a sovereign. They planned a broadcast. Jack used hacked orbital satellites to carve out a 30-second undetectable transmission window. Nia stood before the camera, eyes steady. She didn't name her world or her bloodline. She simply said, "To those who hunt me, I am not afraid. I have found a world that shelters the weak and defies the powerful. I carry its spirit now. Come if you must. But come knowing this, Earth does not yield." The message was encoded with a deep resonance only those familiar with her people would recognize, a call to ancient loyalty and a trigger to systems scattered across galaxies. It was both a beacon and a dare. Within minutes, signals flared across the void. They were coming. But this time, it wouldn't be extraction. It would be a reckoning. The first response to the broadcast came in silence. No threats, no demands, no orbital maneuvers. Just a sudden absence of probes, surveillance interference, and cloaked signals. It was the calm before retaliation, but it also confirmed something critical. They had heard her, and more importantly, they recognized her authority. Nia's declaration had triggered dormant loyalties and parts of the galactic network Earth had never been allowed to know existed. It wasn't a full retreat, but a recalibration. The traitor factions were regrouping. Jack focused on preparation. He wasn't betting on Earth's militaries. He didn't trust slow bureaucracies when it came to preemptive strategy. He activated Protocol Echo, a final line of defense written in his years as a shadow operative. It wasn't about winning. It was about message and morale. Every move they made now would be scrutinized by entities more advanced than humanity, and Earth's response would set a precedent. Would they shelter the weak? Or break under pressure? Underground labs across continents received encrypted orders. Civilian technologists were recruited without context. Earth's top-tier AI models began rerouting orbital traffic. Nia's genetic blueprint was parsed to biosynthetic defensive systems designed decades ago for planetary quarantine. What had been theoretical, an invasion contingency, was now being implemented with ruthless precision. Earth had no time to prepare, but humanity's strength had never been in time. It was an urgency. Nia's physiology began to shift. The more she accessed the memory core, the more her dormant traits activated. Her eyes registered light outside human spectrum. Her thought speed increased, detectable only in subtle gestures. She wasn't just royal by blood, she was enhanced by ancestral design. She admitted she'd always known the transformation would come but feared what it meant. Once her true self emerged, she might not belong on Earth anymore. Jack told her the truth. Earth wasn't about belonging. It was about choosing where you stood, especially when standing hurt. A message arrived. Fragmented. Pre-warp frequency. Ancient code embedded in galactic traitor dialect. It read, "The throne is empty. The Empire watches." Nia decrypted it aloud. The signal meant she wasn't the only survivor, but she was the only one who had declared herself. The others waited to see if she'd falter or be silenced. She now represented something far larger than lineage, hope. Jack knew hope wasn't a plan, so he moved assets. A stealth shuttle was pulled from Martian orbit. Earth's few black site orbital platforms were activated, each equipped with defense systems mimicking asteroid deflection technology. Not meant for war, but enough to blind recon probes and scramble enemy telemetry. The purpose was deterrence, not dominance. If the enemy knew Earth could defend without striking first, it would buy them time. It worked, but only temporarily. The response came in a form nobody expected. Earth's moon lost gravity fluctuation control for 7 minutes. No visible crafts. No beams. Just a planetary anomaly strong enough to destabilize orbital tides for hours. Entire coasts felt the shift. Humans confused it with natural disaster. Jack and Nia knew better. It was a warning: surrender the girl or risk destabilizing your world from its core. Nia didn't flinch. She instead reached deeper into the memory core. Hidden inside was an old piece of her mother's philosophy, not just political teachings, but raw experience. True heirs do not inherit power. It read. They earn the loyalty of those they would lead by enduring what no one else can. Nia embraced the final sequence and triggered her royal biometric key. The result was instant. Orbiting satellites that had long gone dormant blinked back to life. Not Earth's, but alien constructs that had hidden in plain sight. They didn't attack or flee. They repositioned, aligning into a geometric array over the planet's hemisphere. A signal was sent, pulse-based, non-aggressive, transmitting to deep space. The Heir lives. Her claim stands. The Empire was listening now. And so were its enemies. Suddenly, factions responded. Some through encrypted bursts, others by sending cloaked ships near Earth's orbit, observing. The balance shifted. Nia was no longer a hunted fugitive. She was now a claimant to a throne believed lost. Those who wanted her dead would now have to contend with factions that saw her as the rightful future. Earth became a neutral ground, dangerous and sacred. Jack wasn't naive. With more attention came more risk. Earth might survive the conflict, but the planet's anonymity was gone. They could no longer hide from galactic politics. What came next would define their legacy. Would Earth become a vassal? A battleground? Or a respected sovereign voice? That answer depended on how they handled what Nia had become. The U.S. government made contact indirectly. Not through officials, but via an AI interface known as Othello, part of a project long denied. Othello acknowledged the situation without emotion. The girl's existence compromises terrestrial secrecy. Recommend containment or ascension protocol. Jack responded with one line. You touch her, and the galaxy will answer first. Othello paused for 7 seconds. Then relented. Observed. Temporarily refraining from action. Recommend off-world arbitration. Nia had become more than Earth's secret. She was now Earth's statement. Jack knew they were on borrowed time. Humanity wouldn't be given many chances to prove they could stand in interstellar politics. But what they had, more than any other species, was resilience through choice. They protected who they wanted, not who they were ordered to. And that made them unpredictable. Earth became a beacon. Ships began appearing on the fringe of the solar system. Some hostile, others curious. Jack coordinated silent diplomacy with factions willing to talk. Nia issued no decrees, made no threats. She simply prepared. Not to conquer, but to endure, until even her enemies understood she wasn't a weapon. She was a warning. Jack told her, one night, without ceremony. You're not just royalty anymore. You're Earth's promise. They'll remember what we chose to protect. And Nia, fully awakened, eyes glowing with stars unseen by human sight, answered. Then let them come. Earth stands. It was no longer about survival. It was about who they would be when the stars arrived. The storm came silently. Not with blasters or dreadnoughts, but with whispers through space-time. The first true threat to Earth wasn't a fleet, it was a verdict. A galactic tribunal composed of ancestral AI minds, remnants of the fallen Empire's legal core, reactivated by Nia's broadcast and her biometric claim. Their judgment would determine whether Earth would be absorbed, punished, or raised. It was not a war that followed. It was a reckoning. And Earth stood on trial not just for harboring the Heir, but for how it treated her. Nia was summoned to respond to the tribunal, not physically, but through a psychic resonance interface only those with royal genetic markers could access. Jack could not follow her into that domain. For hours she remained unresponsive in a trance state, while the tribunal scanned her memories, ethics, and intentions. They reviewed her pain, her growth, her rage, her compassion. They saw Earth through her, its broken systems, its fierce spirit, its contradictory nature. She showed them kindness in chaos, protection in fear, and one man who did not ask who she was before deciding to save her. When she returned, her eyes were wet. They had not condemned her, but they had not accepted her either. Their message was brutal in its clarity. The Heir's fate is not yours. It is theirs. Let Earth decide. Earth was now the crucible. If its people rejected Nia, she would lose her claim. If they accepted her, they would forever be entangled in galactic politics. No declarations. No wars. Just choice. The weight of an empire balanced on the will of a single planet unprepared for the cosmos. The world reacted in fragments. Some hailed her as a miracle. Others demanded her removal. Global networks polarized overnight. Conspiracies bloomed. Faith groups split. Governments fractured over whether to accept or reject the responsibility thrust upon them. Nia refused to appear publicly. Jack advised silence was stronger than spectacle. Let people argue without manipulation. Let the truth rise organically. It was a girl in Kansas who made the difference. A viral video. 10 years old. Holding a handmade sign. She's one of us. Don't send her away. That video ignited a cascade of empathy across platforms. Millions reposted with their own messages. Refugees, veterans, single parents, orphans, all speaking as if Nia's story mirrored their own. The narrative shifted. She was no longer a risk. She was a reflection. The girl they once feared became the symbol of everything humanity wanted to believe about itself, that kindness was stronger than classification. When the tribunal returned, it issued a final challenge. The Heir may ascend. But she must ascend from Earth, not above it. Jack understood what it meant. Nia could claim her throne, but only if Earth built it, not in gold or force, but in unity. It wouldn't be granted. It had to be earned. Earth had to vote. An international referendum was launched, the first of its kind. One question. Do we, the people of Earth, recognize Nia as a rightful heir and representative of our planetary voice? The turnout was unprecedented. The vote passed. Not unanimously. Not quietly. But definitively. Nia knelt before no one. She stood, not as a queen above, but as a bridge between two civilizations. She swore not to rule, but to speak. Not to command, but to represent. She would serve Earth first, not the empire that once betrayed her. Jack watched her address the world. A translator handled the dozens of languages, but the tone was unmistakable, genuine, humble, resolute. I am not here to be worshipped, she said. I am here because you gave me a chance. And now, I will make sure no power in the galaxy forgets who Earth chose to protect. The galaxy didn't respond with applause. It responded with caution. Treaties were proposed. Alliances offered. Some enemies withdrew, others plotted. But Earth had leverage now. One girl. One decision. One undeniable signal that this backward blue planet had found its voice. Jack returned to his quiet life. He refused any title. He stayed off record. But Nia never forgot. Every treaty she signed bore a symbol at the bottom, two intersecting circles. Not royal insignia. But the mark Jack once drew on her notebook, a human sign for protection and unity. Years passed. Earth changed. The stars no longer ignored it. Ships came to learn, not conquer. Some tried. They didn't return. Nia led as a representative. Not of dominance, but of survival, compassion, and strength in unlikely places. When galactic scholars recorded the turning point of interstellar history, they didn't mention fleets or empires. They mentioned a child raised by a species that refused to abandon her. Jack passed quietly in a cabin overlooking the Rockies. Nia buried him where he asked, under the oldest tree in the forest. No ceremony. Just silence, and a promise whispered to the wind. You didn't just save me. You taught me how to be human. And that is what saved the stars. In time, Earth became not just a planet, but a principle. That mercy mattered more than heritage. That one person's choice could echo across galaxies. And that sometimes, the smallest act, taking in an orphan with no name, could rewrite the future.